Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It's strange how the people you think you know best can suddenly become the ones you question the most. Growing up, I always thought my family life was ordinary: quiet dinners, weekend movie nights, and the same routines that most families share. My mom remarried when I was already an adult, so I never really thought of him as a stepdad in the traditional sense. He was just there, blending into the background of our household. But sometimes, the quietest people hold the deepest secrets. I never expected the turning point of my story to happen late at night, when the house was silent and the only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioning. I had just finished scrolling through my phone, ready to drift off to sleep, when I heard the floor creak outside my bedroom door. At first, I thought maybe it was my mom heading to the kitchen for water. But when the door slowly pushed open, the figure that stepped inside wasn't hers. It was him, my stepdad. My heart raced. 1,000 questions flooded my mind all at once. Why was he sneaking into my room? What did he want? Should I scream? Should I confront him? Or should I just pretend to be asleep? In that moment, I froze, caught between fear and disbelief. His movements were careful, almost calculated, as though he didn't want to wake anyone, or maybe he didn't want anyone to know he was there. There's something unsettling about realizing that the safe space you thought you had, the four walls of your own room, might not be so safe after all. Every shadow looked darker, every sound louder, and every second that passed felt like forever. I tried to steady my breathing, but the more I thought about what was happening, the harder it was to stay calm. Why was he there, and what was I supposed to do next? Looking back, that night changed the way I saw everything. It wasn't just about him sneaking in, it was about the choice I made afterward. Sometimes the decisions we take in moments of pressure reveal more about who we are than years of living comfortably ever could. And the decision I made that night, it still haunts me. Before I tell you what I did, I want to ask you, what would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted him right away? Stayed quiet and waited to see what happened? Or maybe tried to gather proof before telling anyone? Think about it, because when you're in the middle of something you never expected, it's easy to second-guess every move. I'm sharing this because I know I'm not the only one who's been caught in a complicated, confusing, and emotional situation that blurs the lines between trust, betrayal, and temptation. Sometimes life doesn't give us clear answers, and sometimes the people we trust the most test us in ways we never saw coming. What happened next will probably shock you, and it's not something I can explain in just one breath. All I'll say is that the choice I made set off a chain of events I could never take back. If you've ever been torn between protecting yourself, protecting someone you love, and protecting a secret, then you'll understand. That night replayed in my mind over and over, like a scene from a movie I couldn't turn off. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest friend. Maybe it was shock, or maybe I just didn't know how to explain it without sounding like I was making it up. But something about the way my stepdad moved in the dark, the way he stood there for those few quiet seconds before slipping back out of my room, it left me with more questions than answers. And those questions started to change the way I looked at him in the daylight. During the day, he was the same calm and collected man he had always been. He'd drink his morning coffee at the kitchen table, read the news on his phone, and casually ask me about school, work, or whatever small details he thought mattered. Nothing in his face gave away what I saw that night. He was polite, almost distant, like he wanted to keep some kind of wall between us. But now I noticed the small things I had overlooked before, the way his eyes lingered a little too long when I walked into the room, the quiet pauses in his conversations when my mom wasn't around, the unspoken tension that filled the air when it was just the two of us. I kept telling myself it was my imagination. Maybe he hadn't meant anything by it. Maybe he was just checking if I was okay, or maybe he thought he heard something in my room. But deep down, a part of me knew there was more to it. People don't just sneak into your room in the middle of the night for no reason. And the hardest part was not knowing if I should say something to my mom, or if I should confront him directly. Days passed, and I found myself observing him more closely. Every little gesture suddenly felt like a clue. The way he smiled at my mom seemed genuine, but then I'd remember how he looked at me when she wasn't paying attention. It was confusing, frustrating, and strangely magnetic at the same time. I didn't want to admit it, but there was a pull between us that I couldn't explain. Was it all in my head? Or was he silently waiting for me to acknowledge it too? One evening, I stayed up late in the living room pretending to watch TV. My mom had already gone to bed, and he sat down on the opposite couch. At first, we didn't say much, just the background noise of the show filling the silence. But then he asked me if I'd been sleeping well lately. His tone was casual, but my chest tightened at the memory of him standing in my room. I just nodded, pretending not to understand the hidden meaning in his question. He looked at me for a moment longer, almost as if he was trying to read my thoughts, and then turned his eyes back to the screen. That moment felt heavier than words. It was like a secret we were both keeping, unspoken but impossible to ignore. I couldn't decide if I wanted to run from it or lean into it. And that uncertainty became its own kind of trap. Every day, I thought about what would happen if I let this go further, and every night I replayed the sound of my door creaking open in the dark. The line between right and wrong blurred more with each passing day. Part of me longed for answers, for him to just admit what that night meant. Another part of me feared what the truth would do to my family if it ever came out. And so I stayed silent, holding the weight of a secret that wasn't mine alone to carry. But silence only builds pressure. And soon enough, something had to give. The days that followed felt like walking through a storm I couldn't see but could sense all around me. Every look, every word, every quiet moment seemed to carry double meanings. On the surface, nothing had changed. Our family still ate dinner together. My mom still laughed at his corny jokes, and I still pretended that life was as ordinary as ever. But beneath that layer of normal, the air between us carried something heavy, something unspoken. I kept wondering if my mom could sense it, if she noticed the way I avoided eye contact with him at the table, or how quickly I excused myself after meals. Maybe she was too busy, or maybe she trusted him too much to ever think twice. What unsettled me most was how carefully he balanced everything. He never crossed any obvious lines during the day, never said anything that could be taken the wrong way. But it was the subtle things that built up, how his hand brushed mine when he handed me something, how his voice softened just a little when he spoke to me compared to anyone else, or how his presence seemed to follow me even when he wasn't in the room. I couldn't tell if he was doing it on purpose, or if I was just noticing details I had ignored before that night. One evening, I went to the kitchen for water and found him there alone. He was leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up when I walked in, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. Then he asked, "Do you ever feel like people only see what they want to see?" The question caught me off guard, and I wasn't sure if it was casual or if it meant more. I mumbled something about how everyone does that sometimes, but inside, I was rattled. Why would he ask me that? Was he hinting at the secret we were both carrying, or was I just reading too much into it? That night, I lay awake, thinking about how easy it would be for someone to live two lives, one in the open, one in the shadows. Was that what he was doing? Was he the devoted husband in front of my mom, and something else entirely when he was around me? The thought terrified me, but it also kept me curious. I wanted to understand him, to know why he had crossed into my room that night. And I hated that part of me was drawn to the mystery, even when I knew it could tear everything apart. As weeks went by, the tension didn't fade. If anything, it deepened. My mom started working late hours, leaving us alone in the house more often. At first, I avoided those moments, shutting myself in my room or making excuses to leave. But the more it happened, the more impossible it became to ignore the silence between us, the silence that seemed to hum with something waiting to happen. One afternoon, while my mom was still at work, he offered to drive me to the store. I almost said no, but I didn't. In the car, the ride was quiet, except for the faint sound of music on the radio. But it wasn't an empty silence, it was the kind that made me hyper-aware of every movement, every breath. He didn't say much, but the glances he gave me when he thought I wasn't looking said enough. It was like a conversation we weren't allowed to have, yet both of us understood. This was the heart of the conflict, the push and pull between what I knew was wrong and what I couldn't help but feel. Every choice seemed dangerous, telling my mom, confronting him, or pretending nothing was happening. And with each passing day, the weight of not knowing what would happen next grew heavier. The tension kept building until it felt like the walls of the house themselves were holding secrets. I couldn't walk down the hallway without remembering that night, without hearing the faint creak of my bedroom door in my mind. Every small moment with him became charged. Too many glances, too many silences, too many near accidents of touch that lingered longer than they should have. I told myself to pull away, to keep my distance, but the harder I tried, the closer the situation pulled me in. One Friday night, the air was heavy with a storm outside. Rain tapped against the windows, thunder rolled in the distance, and my mom had called to say she'd be late. It was just the two of us at home, and the quiet felt more dangerous than ever. I sat on the couch, pretending to be lost in a book, but I couldn't focus on a single word. Every time he moved in the kitchen, I heard it. Every time he walked past me, my chest tightened. It was like waiting for something to happen without knowing what or when. Eventually, he came into the living room and sat down across from me. The storm outside made the lights flicker for a second, and for some reason, that moment felt symbolic, like something inside both of us was about to break. He leaned back, watching me more openly than before, and finally said, "You've been avoiding me." The words landed heavy, pulling the air out of the room. I froze, unsure how to respond. I wanted to deny it, but the truth was written all over my face. That simple sentence shifted everything. It was no longer just unspoken tension. He had acknowledged it, dragged it into the open, even if only between the two of us. My heart raced, and 1,000 thoughts collided in my head. Was this the moment he would explain himself? Would I finally get the answer I had been turning over in my mind every night since that first time? Or would things spiral into something I couldn't control? I tried to find my voice, but all I managed to say was, "Why were you in my room that night?" The question hung in the air like lightning waiting to strike. He didn't answer right away. His eyes locked with mine, unreadable, and the silence between us grew unbearable. The storm outside cracked louder, and for a second, it felt like the world itself was holding its breath with me. That was the moment I realized there was no going back. Whatever happened next would change everything for me, for him, for my mom. It was the edge of a cliff, and I was standing right on the brink, not knowing if the ground beneath me would hold or if I was about to fall. The silence after my questions stretched on so long it felt like the storm outside had swallowed the entire house. I could hear the rain pounding harder, thunder echoing through the night, and in the middle of it all, him sitting there across from me, not saying a word. My chest tightened as I waited, torn between wanting him to speak and being terrified of what he might actually say. Finally, he leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine, and whispered, "You don't know everything that's going on." The way he said it sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't denial, and it wasn't an apology. It was something in between, like a secret waiting to unravel. Before I could respond, the front door opened. My mom walked in, drenched from the rain, shaking off her umbrella. The shift in energy was instant. He leaned back casually, as if the heavy moment we'd just shared never existed. My mom smiled, kissed him on the cheek, and started telling us about how bad the traffic was. I sat frozen, my mind still spinning. Did he really mean what I thought he meant? What didn't I know? Over the next few days, his words haunted me. I replayed them endlessly. "You don't know everything that's going on." The way he said it made it sound like I was in the middle of something bigger, something hidden, and suddenly I wasn't sure if I was the only one carrying a secret. That's when the second twist in this story revealed itself, because I started noticing something different about my mom. She was more distracted than usual, checking her phone late at night, smiling at messages she wouldn't explain. At first, I brushed it off as work stress, but then I overheard her on the phone, her voice low and soft, saying things I had never heard her say before. I couldn't make out everything, but the tone was unmistakable. My mom was hiding something too. The realization shook me. Here I was, caught in this strange tension with my stepdad, trying to figure out his intentions, and at the same time, my mom might have been drifting into her own secret world. Was that what he meant? Did he know something about her that I didn't? Or was it the other way around? Suddenly, the picture of my perfect family shattered even more, and I felt trapped in the middle of secrets none of us were brave enough to admit. The suspense only grew when one evening, my mom announced she'd be leaving for a work trip over the weekend. The look he gave her when she said it wasn't casual, it was sharp, calculated, like he already knew the truth behind her excuse. And when her eyes briefly flicked toward me before turning away, I realized she was just as nervous as I was. That was when it hit me. I wasn't just dealing with his presence in my room or his lingering glances. I was standing inside a triangle of hidden desires, betrayals, and choices waiting to explode. That weekend, with my mom gone, the house felt like a stage set for something inevitable. The storm had passed outside, but inside, it was only beginning. He moved differently, more certain, more present, as if the absence of my mom gave him permission to step closer to the edge we'd both been circling. I kept asking myself whether I was imagining it, or whether I was already too deep to step away. The stakes were no longer just about me and him. It was about all of us, about the fragile balance of our family, and about secrets that could break everything apart. Every word, every decision from here on out mattered. The house felt different that night, heavier, charged, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. With my mom gone for the weekend, the tension between us had built to a point that was impossible to ignore. I could feel it in the way he moved, the quiet confidence in his posture, the intensity of his gaze whenever our eyes met. I had spent weeks questioning every interaction, every glance, every word, and now there was no escaping it. The secret we had danced around was finally about to come out. I sat on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone, though I wasn't really looking at anything. He came over slowly, leaning against the arm of the couch, and for the first time, he spoke without hesitation. "You've been carrying this tension for weeks," he said quietly. "I need you to understand something." His voice was calm, steady, yet heavy with unspoken emotion. I looked up, heart racing, unsure if I was ready to hear the truth. Then he told me everything, or at least part of it. He confessed that his sneaking into my room that first night wasn't what I feared. He admitted he had been struggling with his own feelings, trying to navigate the complicated dynamics of a blended family while respecting boundaries he never wanted to cross. He explained that his cryptic warning, "You don't know everything that's going on," wasn't about his secret with my mom or any wrongdoing, but about his fear of losing control over a situation that had become confusing for both of us. He had been protecting me, in a strange, misguided way, from misunderstandings that could have hurt our entire family. I listened, torn between relief and the lingering shock of what had been happening in my mind for weeks. The romantic tension that had been building suddenly made sense, but it also felt like a weight lifting. There was honesty now, a clarity that I hadn't expected. But just as I felt myself exhaling for the first time in weeks, the storm outside the window flared again, a flash of lightning illuminating the room, and in that moment, my phone buzzed with a message from my mom. It wasn't a work update. It was a photo, one that revealed she had been hiding her own secret the entire time. My mom wasn't just away on a work trip. She had been seeing someone else, someone I never expected, and the intensity in her messages suggested this was more than a casual encounter. Suddenly, the story I thought was about a confusing, romantic tension between me and my stepdad expanded into something much bigger, a secret that threatened to reshape the family completely. The truth had come out, but in a way that no one could have predicted. Every tension resolved between us, yet a new, unexpected twist emerged, proving that sometimes the secrets we uncover are only the beginning. The days after the revelation felt surreal. With both my stepdad and my mom's secrets out in the open, the house was quieter in some ways, yet heavier in others. At first, I wasn't sure how to navigate the new dynamics. But over time, I realized that honesty, even messy, complicated honesty, was the only way forward. My stepdad and I had cleared the tension between us, acknowledging the confusing feelings that had grown but setting clear boundaries that protected both of us and the family. That clarity lifted a weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for weeks. My mom eventually came back, and the conversation that followed was difficult but necessary. She explained her choices, her mistakes, and her reasons for hiding parts of her life. It wasn't easy to hear, but understanding her perspective allowed me to see her as a person beyond the mother figure I had always depended on. We discussed what each of us needed to feel safe and respected, and for the first time, it felt like we were rebuilding trust, not erasing the past, but learning to live with it. Through it all, I learned something essential. Relationships, whether romantic, familial, or blended, thrive on communication and boundaries. The tension I felt with my stepdad wasn't something to indulge, but it forced me to confront emotions I hadn't understood. The secrets my mom had kept weren't designed to hurt me, but they highlighted the fragile nature of trust and the importance of honesty. By facing these uncomfortable truths head-on, I felt more empowered and aware of what I wanted from my family and my life. The story ended not with dramatic explosions, but with quiet resolutions, conversations that mattered, boundaries that were respected, and a family learning to navigate the complications of adult emotions and hidden truths. Life didn't magically return to perfect, but it became more genuine, more grounded in reality, and ultimately stronger. And while some tension still lingered, it was the kind that comes from knowing people deeply, rather than being haunted by secrets and confusion. Looking back, I realized that the most intense moments, the ones that tested me, were also the ones that taught me the most about trust, love, and respect. Life is messy, people make mistakes, but it's how you respond that defines the relationships that truly last. How did this story make you feel? Would you like to see a sequel exploring more about these complex family dynamics, or should this story stand alone? Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more real-life romantic suspense stories. Summary. This story, my stepdad sneaking into my room, then I did this, a true infidelity story, follows a young adult navigating complex emotions in a blended family. Suspense, romantic tension, and hidden secrets build to a dramatic climax, ultimately teaching lessons about trust, boundaries, and honest communication in relationships.